In this lesson, we'll learn about bone chains in Softimage. Now, for those who may be unfamiliar with bones and joints, if you've ever taken a look at a game character animation or the animation of a character from, let's say, a film, that 3D character is driven by some type of bone system. That goes to show you the significance of bones and joints. With them, we create skeletons to form our characters. So what we'll do in this case is learn how to create a chain system for this hose, and we'll eventually learn how to envelope it to the hose's mesh. But first, let's go ahead and learn how to create these chains. Under the skeleton menu, you'll find the Draw 2D Chain and 3D Chain tool. Let's go ahead and choose the 2D Chain tool. What's neat about the 2D chain is it has a built-in resolution plane that's used for twisting the chain to simulate knee and elbow movements. So more often than not, when you're creating characters, you're going to use that 2D chain. The 3D chain is great for animating tentacles. Alright, so once we have the 2D chain active, we can start to click to create a chain, but it's not the best idea to create it in the perspective view because you really don't know where those bones are going to land. So for instance, as we start to orbit around this chain we created, there was no idea of the angle, the slant that the chain was created with, simply because it was drawn in the perspective view. So let's go ahead and right click to exit the tool and delete this chain. To do so, we can't just select a joint and hit the delete key. Softimage's chain systems are very complex and very robust, so they require a little bit more than just taking the bone and trying to get rid of it. Instead, what we'd need to do is either middle click on our root object, which is this null looking object at the top, or we can right click anywhere on the chain, and that's going to grab the entire chain. Taking a look at that in the Explorer, okay, there's our root. I'll deselect. There's bone 1, there's bone 2. So now again, we can either middle click on the root to grab everything, or right click to also grab the entire chain, and now we can safely go in and delete it with the delete key. Alright, let's say we head over to our right side view. We'll reactivate our 2D chain by simply middle clicking on our skeleton menu. And now we can go in and just create a few bones. Something that looks like a leg chain. Alright, we'll now right click to exit the tool. So what's made are a root null, our 2 bones, and then another null at the end, which is an effector. So the root controls the entire chain. Then of course with these bones we can go in and start to rotate the chain. Now the effector, what's great about Softimage chain systems is that they have a built-in IK system. So no need to do any extra steps to create that IK goal. It's already in place. We'd simply use that effector, move that around. So that's really neat. And what's great is that we can take our bones and start to rotate them. The effector will follow. And to show you how complex this is, if we were to go back to our Explorer and expand the root, you'll see that the effector is not parented to this end bone, but it's almost behaving as that is the case. You'll see that the effector is actually parented underneath the root object. And then as we start to really understand these bone systems, we can start to create IK-FK regs that blend between forward kinematics, which is essentially just rotating down a hierarchy, and then inverse kinematics, which is animating with our IK effector to inverse the rotation of our joints. If you'd like to learn more about setting up regs and also learning about chains in Softimage, feel free to look into our Introduction to Character Rigging course and also our Intro to Rigging course. we go a little bit more in depth into this topic. But what I'll now do is get rid of this chain, and we can go ahead and create a chain for our hose. Let's head over back to our perspective camera. So we know how to build a chain. It's a matter of just clicking. Imagine if we had to do that for the hose, however. We'd be there for quite a while. Thankfully, Softimage has a great tool that will take care of this in no time at all. It's called the Create Chain from Curve tool, found also underneath the skeleton menu. So what we'll need to do is grab the curve that was used to create this hose, which should still be in the scene. If you're having problems selecting it, just go to wireframe mode and select in the center of the hose, or another way, of course, is to use the Explorer. But with it selected, we can now go to the skeleton menu and choose, again, the Create Chain from Curve tool. So we have a few options. The first option lets us define how many bones are created. As we start to slide the slider, it looks like the max is 20, but we can actually increase that max. The next controls whether the chain is going to be connected to the selected curve. This is a more advanced option, so we won't be covering that. But what we will do is populate our hose with more bones. Let's go ahead and use a value of 40. The more bones, the better our deformations will be initially, the less we have to worry about going back and editing our weights. However, with more bones, if we're building a complex system, that's more bones to worry about. But in our case, it's going to work out just fine. So when we choose 40 and choose OK, you'll see that this chain fits well within the hose. All right, great. Now what I'd like to do from here is take the root bone, so that's the bone that follows the root object in the hierarchy, expanding the root, there it is. With that selected, we can hit the Enter key to go to its properties. So by default, what is created is a 3D chain. I like to switch this to a 2D chain, in our case simply because it's a bit more stable at times, especially for how we're going to connect this to our ship so that the hose will follow as we transform its animation control. Alright, so again, let's make sure that was set to 2D and we'll be good to go. Also, I'd like to show you, if we were to go back to texture decal, we have an X-ray mode, which I'm currently under, but to toggle that on and off, you can go to the display menu, turn off X-ray. Notice it's more convenient to select your joints with X-ray on. Another way to do that is to go to your display options, and there is X-ray. So you can have it set to overlay screen, which kind of X-rays your mesh. And chances are you'll probably work with overlay. Notice there's also transparent, which is actually really neat. But I'll go ahead and switch this back to overlay. And then right above that, there's another toggle for X-ray mode. So let's make sure that's on. Alright, so in this lesson, we've learned about bone chains in Softimage. In the next lesson, we'll learn how to connect our hoses chain to our airship.